Hey guys, this is Tim, back again with another video, and today we're not gonna create any complex effects or anything like that. It's gonna be a couple of quick tips to help you improve your workflow and just make your Houdini workflow a lot more flexible. And well, I hope you learned something. If you've used Houdini for quite a while, you're probably already doing the majority of this, but if you don't, then well, hope you enjoy. Alright, so the first quick little tip is probably you know that you can split views. So you can either do that. Wait, there we go. You can either do that here, split top, left, right, or top, bottom. You can also use Alt and the brackets. So what I usually do is that I split these horizontally and I split this one vertically. And I have a second screen which you can see in the recording, and I have that also set up. And then for example I put this to geometry spreadsheet and then I don't click it away usually. So for example geometry spreadsheet, and we can have like a render view. And then what you can do is you have the little pin buttons here. So what I like to do is I like to pin these. So everything I do in here, so let me for example create a geometry node in here, and let's like this is set to 2, and let's with this one dive in here. Now let's create another geometry node here, and so like say the big head here, whatever. You can see it can work in two screens at the same time, and you can like drag stuff into other containers. This way, and it will all get linked up. And in here, the viewport you also have. You can link your viewport to one or the other viewports. So let's move this to test geometry. Let's swap. There we go. So you can switch to views, which is actually kind of useful. So yeah, that's workflow tip number 1. If you didn't already know that, then now you do, and I really like using that. Right, so in this tip I want to go over custom environment variables and how you can use them, because they can be very useful in improving your workflow. So if you go into your documents and Houdini 16 or 15 or whatever you're in a folder, you can open the houdini.env file, and you can create custom environment variables in here. You can change ones that are here, because if you put something here, then it will override the default ones. So for example, what I did is I'm pointing my home, which is the one, like if you create a new project, you have it set to home. I have that set to point to my server drive, which I'm working off. But you can also create custom ones, like for example this cache, which will end up being $cache in Houdini. So why is this useful? Well, for example, you can have a separate cache drive, which is like a SSD, which is much faster, so you can scrub through it. Because like if you use $job/g, it will automatically all end up in your work folder. Or like in my case, I recently configured my second PC as a server to work off of, and I have a separate work folder, which is like a work volume, which is being mirrored across multiple disks. So if a drive fails, then I don't lose my data. But for caches, like intermediate caches, I don't need them to be mirrored, because it only takes up more data on the drive. Like if a cache is 200 gigabytes, if it's mirrored across 2 drives, it's going to be 400 gigabytes. And if it's just intermediate files, I mean, I don't care if, like, in the unfortunate event if a drive fails, then the cache is not too bad. If you lose it, you can just resim it, and for the final render caches, you can just save them in your work directory anyway. So how does this work? Okay, so I configured it here, and I saved it out. So now if I actually create a ROP output driver, so if I put a $job, which is just a regular thing, it will point to my job. But if I put $cache, it will pointing to my cache drive. So, but you might ask, okay, so now then you add up with a cache drive with a whole bunch of like names which might have the same name, and it will be all chaos and everything. And you're probably right, which is what this next tip is going to be about. So this next tip is about making presets. So you can, as you know, you can with this thing you can edit parameter interface, and you can add all kinds of stuff in here, and you can actually save that as a preset. So what I did, I have 2 presets here. So what you do is like you add stuff in here, and then you can go save preset, and you can name a preset, and you can save preset, and you can even save it as a permanent default. So if you do that, then every time you load up a like a raw output driver, for example, then it will end up being the default setting which it comes in at. So first let's go to export job, which will export to my $job variable. So what I just have is I have a folder, so it will export to the geo folder. It will name will Mr. Piggy, version 1, so you can have easy versioning, and like let's make this a little bit shorter, right? And I want to export extension, which is going to be this. And so what I did, I have just $job / and then referring all of the the names. So referring folder, referring name, referring name again, blah 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 blah. So we get this whole little this whole thingy. And so you can, if I'm saving this to disk now, so let me try that. Right, so it's saved out. And as you can see, we're in $job / geo / Mr. Piggy / Mr. Piggy v1. So if I were to make a for Mr. Piggy v2, then we have v1, v2, and that's super useful. Alright, so but let's say we want to save this Mr. Piggy thing in a $cache. So what we're doing for that is basically the same setup. So we call it Mr. Piggy. But what I did here is I put $cache and then slashes, and then I put $job within backticks. So what that does is it converts $job to a string, and because create intermediate directories is on, obviously it will create a $job variable as as a string, so it will recreate the folder structure on my cache drive. So let me show you. So let's save this to disk. Right. So what we're getting now is we're getting the whole project directory. So server name, work, projects, tutorials, quick tips, Houdini, sim, Mr. Piggy if you want. And so if we go in here, you can see it's it creates them on my cache drive. So that's an easy way to keep an organized folder structure, because it's really easy to find the project back. So if you have multiple projects, and as long as you don't change name if you don't change around folder names or whatever, this will just line up completely fine. And I find this a very easy way to separate drives. So yeah, and another thing is it's an easy way to load back things like this is that you can reference the output file, so copy parameter. So if I'm doing it like that, then I'm referencing this one. So this is saved as version 1. So let's say I want a second one which only has 5 pieces, and it's going to be version 2. Save the disk. Right. So now, and the other one is referencing it. So this is going to be to version 2, and I want to go back to version 1. You can see it's that's an easy way to to keep your versioning. So yeah, I hope you found that a useful little tip. Okay, so this next tip is gonna be about creating flipbooks in a more convenient way. So normally for the flipbook you would like go in here or just press it, and like if you wanna put it to mplay, you would put IP, so then it will create like a little flipbook of our falling piggy. Gorgeous. Or if you want to save it to disk, you could like point to a directory and then save it out and do all of these settings. And these settings will often reset, so you will change them the whole time. Like sometimes if you reopen Houdini, then it will be set to IP again, and it can be kind of annoying. And like if you don't want certain objects included, it can be kind of annoying sometimes. But there's a better way to save out flipbooks to send to your director, for example, or to version them. So what you can actually do is you can go into a RobNet, so create a RobNet in here, or go to your out. And there's actually a node called OpenGL, which kind of functions like a mantra node, but it exports OpenGL. So as you can see, I have it set up as a like with a permanent default, what I was talking about before. It's also in here, export settings. So and it functions kind of like a mantra node. So you can put an output image. You can put a output camera. So I will need a camera because it will only work if you have a camera. So you can use your render cam, which you're using for the shot, for example. Else it will give an error. So you need to put your camera. You need to put that you wanna like range that you wanna use. I wanna call it, put it in the Mr. Piggy folder, and I wanna create a JPEG. And what you also need to do is, because like it expects, like if you're exporting EXR, you want a gamma of 1, but if you're doing like a JPEG sequence, you need to put a gamma, you need to correct the gamma to being 2.2, else you get a super dark image. So if you're gonna use JPEG or PNG, just use this. And I mean, for a flipbook, you don't always like need EXRs. So yeah, if I just like if I render this out now, then I have a sequence of my Mr. Piggy. So let me navigate to my to the folder where I saved it out. So Mr. Piggy if you want, and there's the flipbook. And again with the versioning that we talked about before. And also the nice thing is that you don't have any crap in the viewport. You don't have to turn off your grid or anything. So we have a nice little flipbook here, and the cool thing about it as well is that you can, just like in a mantra node, you can actually include or exclude objects. So for example, I can say, okay, I only want, like the Geo1 is my piggy, and I don't want to use any lights at all. So let's put it to version 2 and render it out. So it's gonna render it out again. And now we have a folder for Mr. Piggy 2. And you can see now we don't have any lights and we only have Mr. Piggy. And of course you can create multiple OpenGL nodes. Like that's why it's like a RobNet in here might be useful. So you can call it like your flipbook, flipbook Rob or something, which you put all of your flipbooks in. For like multiple variations of your scene or whatever. And you can even, like this way, you can save out multiple flipbooks at once for like different setups. Like if this is gonna be my flip 01, this is gonna be my flip 02, put like a merge. So I want like this one to be version, let's do version 3, just to make a point, and do version 4. And this one is gonna do everything but without the lights, and this one is gonna do everything with both the lights. Alright, so then I'm gonna choose render. Now it's gonna save out both of my flips at the same time. I tried to send this to deadline as well to check if it works as like a ROP. Like normally you can, for example, export mantra nodes like on your render farm, but that doesn't work. Maybe I'm missing something, but anyway. So now I have a like Mr. Piggy here without lights, and Mr. Piggy with all the lights. So this is I find this a much easier way to create and version Flipbooks. So I hope that some people find this helpful as well. Right, so let's move on to the next workflow tip. Right, so another thing is like, okay, let's say we want to render our Piggy, and we want to do like a nice depth of field effect, and we want to track the head with the with some focus. The thing that I'm missing in Houdini by default, and which like every other 3D program ever has, is the ability to focus on a object or a null. And like since Houdini 16 you have this nice constraints thing, but there's nothing for focus there, which I don't understand. So let me show you how you can create a focus null. It's actually pretty easy. So let's create a null called focus, and let's create a geometry network called focus. I just call this focus, and call this focus. No, maybe like this. Right. So then what we need to do is we need to, let's go in here by the way, let's go into our cam. We need to create the object merge in here. We need to import our cam origin. So as you can see, this is really useful with splitting the views. So you can have like multiple views, and you can link stuff together, which is really nice. And I need to put it into this object, so it takes into account the world transformations of the camera. And we need to do another object merge, and we need to import the add in our null and into this object again. Right. So now we need to merge those two together. And let me go out of my cam. I'll merge them together, and then all we need to do is pull down the add, because we want to create a line in between. So go to polygons by group, and you can see we get a nice little line. So let me delete my environment light, so it's going to be a little bit darker, so it's easier to see. And what we want to do is we want to measure the length of this line. So what we're going to do is we're going to put down the measure, and the measure is going to create a primitive attribute called parameter, which is the length of the line, and we want to have a better name, so let's do override name and call it focus distance. Let's copy that. So now we have a attribute called focus distance, and now let's just put a output just to keep it clean. So now we have a focus distance, and now what you can do is you can go into your cam, and you can go into sampling, and you have your focus distance here. And as I said before, you cannot link this by default, because you would think that you might be able to drag like this in here, but that will just end up being 0. And there's no other options that I know of to do this. So what we want to do is we want to use the primitive attribute that we just created. So how we are gonna do that is type prim to get a primitive attribute, and we're gonna refer to the object that has the data. So we called it focus, right? We want to take the first primitive, so the 0 primitive. We want to create as a string the focus distance. There we go. And we want to take the first attribute of the focus distance, because it's a float value. So if it was like a vector, you would have 0, 1, 2. So but it's a float, so we need to take the 0th attribute. So press enter, and as you can see, it picks up on the focus distance very nicely now. So you can just change it, and it will change nicely in here. And obviously that also works like if you have a redshift camera. You can also use that in there, and that will all work perfectly fine. So that's the easy way to create a focus null in Houdini, and I really think that they should just automate this like in a next release or something, because I don't know why it's not in there by default. Okay, so another thing that I want to talk about is just something small, camera wiggles. So if you have a like if you want to do camera wiggles, an easy way I find is to like first set up a base control for your cam. Just put a null, link it to your cam, and this thing can move your camera. And then in between here, let's stack some wiggles. So let's put a wiggle 1, and in here you have you can go on translate and go to motion effects and add a noise. So it will get to create motion effects, and this will create now a very crazy camera wiggle. Let's put the real time, which is obviously way too crazy. And we want this to be the very slow wiggle. So let's make it slower. Let's decrease the amplitude. Let's make it a little bit less rough. Maybe even slower. So this is gonna be our general like handheld type look maybe. So it's just a really subtle wiggle. And so if you close it down, you can, even if you want to change it later, you can go to like right click on it, go to motion effects, add parameter, and you can change the noise in here again. So yeah, this is your just a motion effects for you can just change it in here. But now let's say we want to stack another wiggle on it, you can just do another null. Wiggle 2. Go to translate motion effects and do a do another noise. Let's say this is going to be our faster noise, so we don't want it to be very big, we want it to be very fast, like a little bit rough. And let's say we want to just animate this in, so let's put amplitude to 0, so now we have only our base wiggle, and let's stack a little bit of this wiggle in here. So let's just increase that. So now we're starting off with base wiggle, and then there's like this earthquake and a very insane wiggle, and we're gonna turn it back down again. And whoa, earthquake. But now we have control over our separate wiggles. So yeah, and well, obviously, if we had the focus before this, of course, but as you can see, this just works nicely together because it's using the world transforms. So even if this doesn't change, it still takes up all of the information because it just loads up the camera. So that all works nicely together. So just a quick little thing on how to do camera wiggles. So yeah. Okay, so another tip, which isn't really a Houdini only tip, it's just a general workflow tip. And if you've ever worked in any studio environment at all or whatsoever, you already know this. But if you don't, then I wanted to include this anyway. So it's about using software called Thinkbox Deadline, which is a render management software, and it's actually free for up to 2 computers. So even like for a home user, if you're just doing this for a hobby or learning, it's just really it's a much more user-friendly way to manage renders or sims or whatever. So actually, so this is their site. It's free for up to 2 computers. You just can send them an email and they will send you a link to the installation file. So you can install it. And what you're getting is like this software, and you're getting like for each machine you're getting a slave, and the slave is listening for renders to come in, and then it will start rendering them once they come in. So you're getting this plugin, so you need to install the plugin and go to submit to deadline. And so let's say I wanna render this big, and I only want to use like my server to render, so I don't want to use my main workstation for now. I only want to use that one. So I can set priority, so I want to put a priority of 50, and more about this later. So I want to select render this ROP, and I don't want to automatically create dependencies, which is just depending on my setup here. Normally you would probably want to keep that checked, but I don't. So if I'm going to submit this, so let's submit it. Right, so now it's gonna take a bit, and now it's appearing in here. So now my other computer is gonna start rendering this little piggy. So while it's rendering, I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this thing. So you can use this for everything. You can also like save ROPs, for example. So it's really useful, like if you have a fluid sim and you want to mesh it like you can set up like multiple computers to work on the meshing, for example, or something else. There is a little bit of overhead, so if it's like a really fast like bullet or pop sim, it's not gonna be quicker to do it in deadline, because it will take a lot more time to do it in deadline. But overall, it's very easy to manage stuff. And with the priority, like for example, if like this render is running now, so like this frame is done, so let's view the output. Alright, so you can see it rendered the little piggy, and it's continuing to render. But now let's say I have another render which has much more priority to render, so I can put like the priority to 80, and let's say, oh okay, now I also want to include like this computer. So if I'm gonna submit this now, now it's first gonna finish the frame it's already rendering on, but for now let's just requeue the task, and it will automatically start rendering the other task which has a higher priority. Or at least it should. Alright, there we go. So now it's rendering rendering that one, and that's just done. So let me just quit these because I don't really need to render that, but just to prove a point. So it's just an easy way, like if you have like multiple render passes or something like that, it's just an easy way to manage your renders. And even like if you shut down your computer and you want to continue rendering like on another day, you can just like, it will just, when you fire up your slave, it will just continue where it left off. It will just check in here which frames left off of, and it will just continue rendering. It's just an easier way to manage your whole render workflow. And of course, if you have like 50 machines, then well, obviously then you will need to buy a license for every machine, but then it will just use all of your machines. So like even for a home user, this is just it's very very useful way to work. So I highly recommend that you check it out. And with Houdini, like if you have Houdini Indie, you can use you can of course buy maximum of 3 Indie licenses, and you have 3 Houdini Engine Indie licenses, so you can use Deadline up to 6 machines in your home setup or in your small studio setup. If you want to use more, obviously you need to invest in buying FX or in Houdini Core. But yeah, so that's another quick little tip. Alright, so those were the quick little tips that I had for you. I hope you found this useful. If you'd like to see more of these kind of more tips stacked in one video type of thing, let me know. I thought it would be a nice idea. So obviously, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will talk to you next time.